On April 1st, 2020, a face was put to what had been an invisible disease. Kenyans were introduced to the first COVID-19 patient. Her name was Brenda Cherotich. Well, despite efforts by the Ministry of Health to allay fears on an unknown virus, more questions arose with Brenda's unveiling. She's mostly kept a low profile in the last year, but agreed to speak to Citizen TV exclusively on her journey back to normalcy.
To keep confidential your details.
From obscurity to being thrust into the glare of camera lights, Brenda Cherotich and her friend Brian Ondiri became the poster children of Kenya's COVID-19 pandemic. The April 1st press conference drew heavy attention at a time the country was coming to terms with a global crisis. An unassuming Brenda and Brian sharing their experiences with none other than President Uhuru Kenyatta himself.
They took me seriously and they gave me the mask. Immediately I mentioned that I had gone abroad and I was having a cough.
They came for me wherever I was. They took me to a government facility and I was tested, and immediately the results came back as positive. Your government again embarked on treating me for the past 2 weeks or so.
And with the headlines came a barrage of attacks on social media. Kenyans started poking holes in Brenda's story, from how many days she was in quarantine. Furthermore, what was her relationship to Brian? During that April 1st briefing with the president, Brian revealed he contracted the virus from Brenda.
Enter Brian. Who is Brian Ondiri to you?
I came to know Brian's name when I saw him being brought into the isolation ward. So that's when I realized this is someone who I had seen coming into the house for 1 or 2 instances. And that's when I realized, because I had told my friends, when the ministry calls you and asks anybody who's been in contact with me or anybody who's come into the house, then we must make sure that we give them all the information. And my friends did it. So Brian was one of the people who came into the house.
Nearly a year has passed since Brenda's first press conference here at Afia House. Now, after the lights dimmed and chatter about her ordeal died down, she quickly disappeared from the public eye, maintaining a low profile. That is until this.
Brenda Cherotich, an electrical engineer from Kenya, and I'm 27 years old. I am Miss Tourism International Kenya.
On January 17th this year, Brenda represented Kenya at the 23rd Miss Tourism International Contest. It was the first time Brenda would divulge more details on her life beyond the patient zero label she bore for months.
Beats to the rhythm of my heart.
Though she didn't make it to the top 10, the 27-year-old talked about her childhood experiences in Kericho, as well as the culture during the pageant. She hasn't spoken to any press, that is until now, when she agreed to share her story 1 year after the pandemic hit. So Brenda, what was it like being the first publicly known COVID-19 patient in Kenya?
I was, of course, scared, I was concerned, and then at the same time, I was aware that nobody knew what was going on, and people had different reactions to it. Some people were very encouraging and some were very discouraging, sadly, but I get it because nobody knew what this was, how it was transmitted, or what the end would be like. We didn't know how much of the world would be infected. So that was the burden I was carrying inside. I was concerned for my own health and for the health of those who were around me.
Now, you drew a lot of criticism on social media after your case was revealed. How did you deal with that?
I had a great support system, I would say, from the medical personnel, from my friends and family. And I feel like my family especially was around during that time, and they were very, very supportive. And yes, there was stigma, but then I understand and I completely get it, because this was something that no one knew anything about.
So how did you deal with people who didn't believe your story? You know, some were saying that you were put up to this by the government.
Next question.
You can at least answer that one.
Despite further prodding, Brenda even declined to respond to our questions about her relationship with Brian. Her reluctance to reveal specifics on career and future plans persisted, though she did reveal.
Well, I'm doing much better now. I got over it, and now I'm moving on with my life. I'm doing greater things, and I feel like I'm an ambitious woman and I got a whole life ahead of me. So it's very important for me to be very positive-minded and, put in hard work and chase my career, which is what I'm doing right now, and I'm happy with where I am.
She's learned to keep her cards close to her chest, and just as quickly as she came into the limelight, the ever-mysterious Brenda retreats to a life of obscurity 1 year on.